Good morning, podcast world, and welcome to the last Tuesday of the month with Angie Hughes, your host at Producers XL. This is the Producers XL Persiflage, where I come on and just honestly, it's kind of turned into I'll just talk whatever's on my mind. And I have a story I want to share with everybody. So, obviously, you saw the title of this month's podcast called Do You Hear What I Hear? And I thought that was a very catchy little title because what I'm going to talk about is hearing. And I got to tell you a story about this because it's going to kind of come back to uh, long-term care, the aging process. And what's interesting to me is then, to bring that back around to the insurance world and relate that into, the world that we all live in. And um, so I'm just going to dive right in and tell you about this story because it's not unique. It is absolutely not unique. It is something that many, many Americans are experiencing every single day of their life. And I guess maybe I found it interesting just because it hit a little closer to home. So you guys have heard me talk. I debated on do I tell you who this is or do I just kind of keep it anonymous and just tell the story? And I know if I if I try to keep it anonymous, more than likely I'm going to slip up and end up saying, who or what and whatnot. So I'll just go down this way. So we have a lady that is going to have a 75th birthday, and life seems to be fairly normal for a person of that age, still able to drive, still able to live in her own home. Maybe cognition's not as quick or as sharp as it used to be, but I mean, that's okay. We can all navigate through that, no problem. Until the daughter goes out of town. So this woman's daughter goes out of town, like out of state even. And so, right, that means the other son left in town needs to, just check on mom, make sure everything's okay, just touch base. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of times sons aren't necessarily the most coddling individuals, especially with aging parents. At least that's what I've experienced. So there's a lot of prodding going on, like, hey, you should probably check on your mom, make sure everything's okay. So it's later in the afternoon. We're not quite done with the work day. I'm going to say it was probably around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we get a phone call that there's been a car accident. So our first concern is everybody okay? Mom okay? Did she hurt herself? How, were there any other people involved? Are they okay? Kind of assess that immediate situation. She's fine, obviously some bangs and bruises, and there was no other people involved. Instead of making the small curve that it took to get down the street back to her house, um, the story goes, and this is what we were told by her, that she just doesn't remember what happened. I don't know. I I just looked up and was in a wreck. Well, that in a wreck meant she didn't make the curve, went straight, kind of hovered over a ditch, hit a concrete culvert, bounced into a driveway, and hit a truck hard enough that it ended up totaling her vehicle, airbags deployed, and knocked some components underneath of his truck out. So his truck wasn't drivable. So pretty good impact. Now, if you guys remember, I don't know if when I took driving classes in high school, they would put you in this simulator, seatbelt simulator, where you'd kind of go down this ramp and it would kind of simulate the impact of that. It really doesn't take a lot of speed. I mean, 10 miles an hour and it's going to be jarring. 20 miles an hour, it's going to feel really rough. 30 miles an hour even. So you can imagine the more you have speed. So I'm guessing going around this curve, we weren't definitely not doing in excess of 30 miles an hour because it's a residential road. And remember, we're 75 driving the car. So, still some bangs and bruises, and you know how that goes when your skin starts to get real thin, you bruise very easily. Okay. So we've got everything assessed. Mom's car's totaled. Got to drag it to the tow yard. Now she's without car. And the big concern for the kids was, what do you mean you don't know what happened? It's okay to admit that you were messing around on your phone. Okay, that's believable. Not the right thing, but at least you know, hey, I was looking at my phone, I was fussing with it, whatever. No, I wasn't. I wasn't. Okay. She had just gotten back from running some errands and had stopped by Sonic. Were you maybe trying to pick up I tease it, and were you picking up the big gulp? And maybe you looked down instead of looking up no, no, wasn't doing that either. Well, Mom, it's concerning that we have no idea how this happened. So, of course, the daughter being a nurse, we go down this whole path of, is there something else? Are there small TIAs? Was there a stroke? Is there some kind of an ischemic change in the brain? So now we're into a series of doctor's appointments, MRIs, got to have the shunt realigned in the brain. Let's check the vision. Let's check the hearing. Let's go see our primary care, right? No driving because the car's totaled. You can't drive the car anymore. So now all the kids have to take all the medical appointments and get to and fro and all those follow-ups. So, right, you get all of those scheduled and you're jockeying 3 adults with 3 full-time jobs trying to get her to and from. Keep in mind, we're already in wound care for the legs due to circulation and skin grafts and things of that nature. And promise you, this story has a purpose behind me telling you this. But as you're listening to it, I want you to kind of envision your clients. And maybe your clients are in their 50s, but I bet they're experiencing this with their own parents or grandparents or aunt or uncle or someone in their church or community that they're helping, right? They're watching the slow decline. A slow decline is not a long-term care claim. Just getting old is not a long-term care claim. So go back and we've got to schedule about 6 different doctor's appointments, right? Because you got the vision, the hearing, the PCP, the MRIs, then you got to take her out of town an hour and a half to get the shunt that's in the brain for the pressure on the brain. You got to have all that checked out. And then you go have the tests, and then you got to schedule follow-up appointments to go review those test results. So fast forward, we're into the follow-ups with the doctors to figure out the results. And the biggest impact, right, the MRI showed no real major changes. So we can rule out strokes, TIAs, seizures. Don't know why we've got I don't know what happened. I just don't know what happened. Vision, severe dry eye. So now we're, eye drops every 4 times a day in the eyes to try to get that. Because, if you want to drive again, vision and hearing are pretty important. We're not even talking about reaction time. Could you actually pick your leg up and slam on the brake if you had to, if kids were playing in the park and a ball rolled out in front of you, or someone pumped the brakes real hard and slammed on the brakes to hit stop at a red light? Could you react? So reaction is completely different of this. We're just talking about basic functions that you have to drive. Can you hold the steering wheel? Do you have the strength? Is your vision good enough to see? Is your hearing good enough to hear? Well, we go to the audiologist for a hearing check, and the audiologist says, darn near deaf, all not hearing much. And more importantly, not only are we not hearing, we're not processing. So, and this is the whole fascination. This would just blew my mind. So I was the one kid that was allowed to go to the follow-up hearing appointment when we got the 30-day free trial for the hearing aids, because there's no doubt that hearing aids are necessary. So I have to tell you what this hearing test revealed. It is not just about let's get hearing aids, we'll hear better. If what you're hearing in your ears goes in your ear and up to your brain has to then comprehend and process what you're hearing. This, maybe I'm the only goofy person out here that finds this fascinating, but you wouldn't think, I mean, honestly, you can put your thumb in your ear and touch your brain. Right? You can touch your skull. We're not talking, oh, it's not like this information has to travel through a 3-mile maze to to get there. But when you go so long with hearing loss, and just know that most people do, as we age, our hearing gets less. But pause for a moment, and if you have anyone in your life that you are repeating yourself, you get a lot of head nods, you get a lot of what the heck are you talking about? They're not hearing very well. And if that goes on for a prolonged period of time, they're not processing. The comprehension isn't there, which I will tell you when we went through this, I'll call it a simple car wreck. I mean, obviously it wasn't a simple car wreck. We uncovered what we thought we were looking down the barrel of a gun, dementia, to no, the hearing loss is just so bad and gone on for so long because we were so adverse to putting in a hearing aid that now all of a sudden our brains just not comprehending common conversations. So now through a 30-day trial for hearing aids, you have to start doing things to build an auditory rehabilitation, which is training your brain to interpret sound signals by the hearing aids to give you active brain training. So that structured practice looks like read out loud to yourself. That also comprehends to, and it was so fascinating to me. Um, Turn on the radio or ask Alexis to play you a song that you know the words to. Pick a song in your day that you love. You know the words. You could sing along with it today. And relate that back to dementia, right? If you have mild cognitive impairment, you don't have to worry about remembering what you had for breakfast. You're going to remember a song that you loved in high school or in college or in your 20s or 30, right? That's a long-term memory. Remember, dementia is a short-term memory issue. So have Alexis play a song or turn the radio on or, tune in your Sirius radio, whatever it is. Hook up Pandora, Spotify, pick your favorite music system. Um, Play a song you know and sing that song with it and pay attention to, are you, so many times we can listen to music, you know the words, you sing along, but have you ever listened to the words? Do you know what that song is about? Songs are stories. It was so important when you do this active brain training, listen to an audio book and see if you're following the storyline. It was absolutely amazing to me because we were looking at, okay, maybe we should get something like Jubilee TV, right? Where we're able to kind of remote in. We could see mom. We know that, you're not falling, you're not laying on the ground, you're just taking a nap. Um, Two-way conversation back and forth. We can monitor all of those types of things to no, it's just bad hearing. And the audiologist said, so you get a 30-day free trial. And a lot of people don't buy hearing aids because they're like, I don't want to spend $7, $8, $9,000 on hearing aids. That wasn't even the recommendation. It depends on what you need to hear. If it's just TV and a radio and conversations with people and you're retired, that hearing aid doesn't have to be like it would be for someone like me that has to go to work and I have to hear phone conversations and Zoom conversations. And, there's a lot of background noise and typing on key, right? It's different when you're out of that environment versus just in your home all day. And to start actively training your brain to basically fire up those synapses inside of from the small connection from your ear to what you hear to what your brain processes and what you understand being said. And the audiologist said it could take a year. A year. So when you stop and think about your loved ones and we say something, now here's what's difficult. You have three of us with highly engaging occupation. One's in law enforcement, one's in insurance, one's in medical. And we're all very fast paced. And we go and we are literally attempted to do a Google shared calendar so we could put mom's appointments. I'm not joking with you when I tell you we run anywhere from 3 to 5 appointments, whether that's hair, nails, medical, hearing, vision, doctors, you name it. Plus wound care goes to her house twice a week. So being able to, I had also the luxury, privilege, if you will, to go to the follow-up appointment for the MRI results to the primary care physician yesterday. And the conversation went a lot like this. How are you feeling? Good, good. Well, the MRI results showed that everything's pretty normal, very normal for someone that's 75 years old. How do you feel? Good, I feel great. Can I drive again? I mean, we didn't miss a beat. Can I drive again? And the reluctance, that's a tough spot when you've got a daughter-in-law sitting behind you out of eyesight, a doctor sitting on the other side. Him and I can non-verbally communicate, and mom's in the middle, and all she wants to do, and I'm air quoting, I just want to be able to go to my own doctor's appointments, take myself there so I don't inconvenience you kids. I want to be able to, go grab coffee with the girls. I want to be able to go to the grocery store, maybe run to Hobby Lobby. And I went, Mom, you're asking to drive all over town. Nobody would like you to drive more than us kids. But we have to make sure that you're safe. Safe for you, safe for everyone else that's on the roadway. If your vision's not there and you've not been released, you have not been re-seen by the eye doctor, and the hearing, the doctor audiologist said that could take a year. We have to make sure, and behind the scenes, we're all like little things like, I understand when you retire and you're not beholden to a calendar of appointments Monday through Friday, and you get 2 days, Saturdays and Sundays where that's your free time, right? That's the calendar we all live by. When you're retired and you're not reporting to that calendar, you're literally just shuffling from appointment to appointment. You keep a little calendar. Well, I don't think the comprehension is there, because otherwise, why would you have waited in the driveway on Sunday for 15 minutes and then texted me and said, when are you coming by to pick me up for my doctor's appointment? And then realize later, oh, wait, it's not Monday, it's Sunday. So we immediately want to go in, and we did the cognitive assessment while we were there at the doctor's office, and it came back, scored 28 out of 30. And they're like, that's good. That's really good. But to us kids, we're like, it was 30 out of 30 3 months ago. Now it's 28 out of 30. What's it going to be 3 more months from now? So it is so critical that we get her hearing way back up there so that she's comprehending what she's hearing and processing in her brain. So we know and feel confident enough that she could at least manage her own appointments, and we're just not there. And I just think of how many people in their families, if not themselves, realized how critical hearing is. And so, from an insurance perspective, right? I mean, Medicare's not paying for hearing aids. Um, Long-term care, of course, is not paying for hearing aids. And if Medicare's not paying for it, what's your option? A dental vision hearing? And we know that dental vision hearing plans really are only there for the dental component of it. I mean, there's a little ancillary benefit in there from vision and maybe a ancillary benefit in there from hearing. But depending on what you need them for, I mean, I don't want to deny that hearing aids are expensive, but in my mind, $3,500 for a mid-range hearing aid for 2 ears to get your life back is priceless. And I don't know if she even understands that. And so the work that we have to put in to try to basically re-engage that brain is going to be an undertaking, all while trying to preserve dignity, show respect, be kind, be empathetic. Because if I told you that instead of those emotions, what you typically get is irritation, annoyance, burden, and just downright pissed off at times. And I think it takes a lot to step back and say, or remind yourself, you too will be in that exact same situation. And are you yourself prepared to deal with everything that it takes? And you all have heard this, aging isn't for the weak. But what do we do? The only person, and this is to quote, oh my goodness, how did I lose his name? Because I want to give credit to this. Oh golly, I'll have to come back. But basically, to quote him, he said, "The only person that's going to take care of your older self is your younger self," and that couldn't be more true. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Was you know, do you hear what I hear? And it has to do with as people age, do they understand how to age as best as they can? And I had no idea how much hearing played a role in your brain health. Just something to ponder. So, with that, thank you so much for joining me this month. We will have another podcast in July. That date will be July 28th. You can chime in at 10 o'clock for my podcast. And I look forward to not seeing you, but having another interesting conversation. You all have a wonderful week and happy birthday, America, and have a wonderful, safe 4th of July. Take care.